want to talk about two things that are really about health, but I want to talk about the actual technology that's being used for the smart meters and the thing that concerns us about it, and then talk about the politics of what to do as directly as possible. The smart meter is a piece of a broader program, national program, to implement what's called a smart grid. Smart grid is not intended to, as sometimes advertised, to lower our carbon footprint or to conserve energy. It is intended to lower the requirement for adding new facilities to the electric power, what's called the electric power grid. The electricity, when we turn on lights anywhere, pulls electricity off of a bunch of wires that we can see all around, and that energy can be produced someplace that's very close or very far away. When everyone on the hottest day on August 25th turns on their air conditioner, it creates a huge demand so that the utilities, which have to provide the energy, have to build those plants. But they don't use them most of the time. The only times they use them is at those what's called peak load. So the problem that's being solved by this is not a conservation problem. It is not a carbon footprint problem. It is a financial problem for the utilities that produce electricity. And the piece that the smart meters play in this scheme is it will enable the utilities to control how you consume energy so that their load can be balanced, so that they don't get peaks, there are sudden peaks, blackouts, brownouts, those sorts of things. So you will have a device on the side of people will have a device on the side of their house that gives PG&E and other utilities access to your home and what is going on in your home. Right now, a human being comes out and looks at the dials that are on the meter that's on the side of your house, typically once a month. The smart meter will enable what's called time of day metering. That is, the utility will be able to tell what time of day you're using electricity. And during those times of day when a lot of people are using electricity, they will be able to charge you more for that electricity than otherwise. You supposedly will read that signal and decide not to turn on your air conditioner when you get home from work, or to replace your refrigerator, or some other nonsense story that they have. But the essence of the smart meter is that it's the gateway for the utility into your house. Now, the smart meter can be implemented in several ways. Originally, I just found this out recently, when PG&E first proposed using smart meter, the method that they proposed for transmitting that information from your house to PG&E headquarters was to use the existing electrical lines to send the data over that. And that's a technology it's actually a very bad technology that's being promoted because it's being promoted because the wires are already there. Signals can be carried along those wires from a home to some central place. Actually, I don't know the details of why that was rejected, but ultimately PG&E decided that it was economically not feasible to do that, or technically not feasible to do that. They would not be able to carry the amount of information. What they switched to was they planned to use radio frequency radiation antennas mounted on the meters themselves to transmit that information. I'm going to go into a bit about how that works, because therein lies a good deal of the danger. I want to skip over and talk about what everyone technically agrees technically is the desirable method for implementing smart meter, that is establishing communication, and that's what's called fiber optic to the home. Fiber optic is literally that. It's glass wire that carries visible light that technical people could tell you much more than I can about it, but essentially the amount of information and the speed with which can be carried is vastly greater than using radio frequency signals and antennas. PG&E has rejected this because they say it costs too much. This, in fact, is nonsense, because there are many internet service providers such as Google, and up where I live in Sonoma County, Sonic.net, which has plans to hook up houses using fiber optic to the home. In any event, 5 years ago, when PG&E was going through this and switched to RF-based signaling communication with smart meters, it was purely an economic decision. It's cheap, and it is built on the idea of what is called a mesh network. A mesh network is, if you understand the concept of a local area network or a network in your house, if you have computer services where a wire comes out of a modem and goes to your computers, you have a network, goes to multiple computers, you have a network. There are wireless modems which emit radio frequency radiation, which can connect computers. And essentially what the mesh network is, it's a big, vast, wireless network that goes through neighborhoods, cities, across the state, that connects from your meter to PG&E headquarters using radio frequency signals. The reason this is particularly dangerous is that the PG&E and none of the technologists, because no such network has ever been installed, no one knows how much exposure people are actually going to be subject to. The exposure statistics that PG&E has come up with have been what people will be exposed to with a single meter, which is bad enough. But once an entire neighborhood or entire city is wired up, many people are estimating that the actual exposure that some people will be subject to will be astronomical, orders of magnitude greater than a single meter, because meters become transit stations for signals. The meter on your house could be the way station for the 20 homes around your home. So the information comes from their home, comes to your meter, and gets passed on to signaling devices elsewhere and gets sent on to PG&E headquarters. So the danger here is not just from the radio frequency exposures from individual meters, it's once this whole network gets fired up, what people are going to be exposed to. So there's virtually nothing known about how that works, about what the exposures are actually going to be. There's, like I said, estimates that these exposures could be, are likely to be far greater than anyone's estimating. And one of the fig leaves that PG&E hides behind with regard to this issue is that whenever the issue of health effects is brought up, the PG&E says that it can't really address that problem because that's something that's governed by the Federal Communications Commission. This is a false claim because the Federal Communications Commission does not have any standards for long-term exposures of these kinds. the kinds of you're going to be of long-term, low-grade exposures such as those coming from these meters. So there has been an application filed by the EMF Safety Network, which is at the website emfsafetynetwork.org, which is, as far as I know, the most active group on this issue so far. Take down this number. The application number for this that they have made to the Public Utilities Commission is 10-04-018. That application is asking for a reversal of the original application made by PG&E before the PUC, and it asks for fundamentally two things: a moratorium to investigate the environmental health, safety, security, and performance risks associated with the use of smart meters, and asks that the CPUC implement an opt-out option. What the opt-out option means is that if you don't want one of these things on the side of your house, they can't make you. Right now, if you call the number that support from PG&E, you will get someone who will actually get hostile with you if you express a desire not to have one of these things on your house. So the important thing for you to do is to write a letter to the CPUC that in support of that application. There's a petition. Sign that petition that has many of the elements in it that the application before the CPUC has. And I also want you, most importantly, to get in contact with the office of Dean Flores in the State Senate and Mark Leno, who is your